Made in China, how China became the world's factory, once a land of rice fields, revolution, and relentless hardship. China today powers the shelves of nearly every store on Earth. From the smartphones in our hands to the shirts on our backs, the label Made in China has become not just a phrase but a force. This is the story of how a country torn apart by civil war, famine, and ideological purges transformed itself into the world's greatest manufacturing engine in under half a century. It's a story of strategy, sacrifice, and scale, but also one of cast on the environment, on labor, and on the future of global trade. How did China become the factory of the world? The answer begins not in the skyscrapers of Shanghai, but in the ashes of the Maoist era, in dusty communes and crumbling fields, where one leader decided that ideology alone would no longer feed a billion people. One after Mao, a nation at the crossroads in 1976, Mao Zedong died, and with him, the last thread holding together China's old revolutionary dream began to unravel. The country he left behind was impoverished, traumatized, and dangerously stagnant. His great leap forward had ended in famine, costing tens of millions of lives. His cultural revolution had torn apart the fabric of Chinese society, purging intellectuals, closing universities, and turning youth into ideological warriors. Factories were outdated. Productivity was dismal. China's share of global trade was a rounding error, yet its population was massive. The land was rich with potential. But the question was, who would unlock it? Enter Deng Xiaoping, a survivor of multiple purges and a man of few words, but clear vision. Deng did not believe in utopias. He believed in results. His motto, "It doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice," signaled something radical, a break from dogma, a shift from revolution to reform. And so, in 1978, under Deng's leadership, the Communist Party launched a bold new strategia, open-door policy. For the first time in decades, China would open itself to the world. 2. The rise of special economic zones. To test this policy, Deng authorized the creation of 4 special economic zones in Zhuhai, Shantou, and Xi'an. These were capitalist experiments inside a socialist country. Inside these zones, foreign investors could partner with Chinese companies. They were given tax breaks, modern infrastructure, and access to the world's largest pool of low-caste labor. Shenzhen, once a sleepy fishing village of 30,000 people, would explode into a megacity of over 12 million. It became the symbol of China's breakneck growth. Across these zones, Western corporations set up operations. Nike, Apple, IBM, and countless others came chasing margins and speed. China, in turn, offered something no other country could match: scale. Workers poured in from rural dormitories were built. Roads, railways, and ports appeared at unprecedented speed. What took the West a century to build, China constructed in a single generation. 3. The export engine ignites. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. It was a defining moment. Overnight, tariffs dropped, barriers fell, and China's manufacturing capacity was unleashed on the global economy. Between 2001 and 2010, China's exports grew 5-fold. Every year, more factories opened. Every year, more of the world bought from China. By 2010, China had surpassed Germany to become the world's largest exporter. Container ports in cities like Shanghai, Ningbo, and Guangzhou became the busiest in the world. The world's supply chains became dependent on China, whether for raw materials, electronics, toys, clothing, or industrial components. Made in China wasn't just a label, it became a necessity. 4. The mechanics of the machine. Why did China succeed where others couldn't? First, there was labor abundant, disciplined, and mobile. With hundreds of millions of rural workers seeking opportunity, China had a labor pool larger than the population of the United States. Wages were low, but ambition was high. Second, infrastructure. China invested trillions in roads, bridges, airports, and power grids. High-speed rail connected factory towns with shipping hubs. Raw materials flowed in, finished products flowed out. Time was money, and China moved faster than anyone else. Third, the state. The Chinese government provided subsidies, land, and financial incentives to priority industries. Local officials competed to attract investment. Industrial parks sprang up overnight. Bureaucracy bent to the will of growth. 5. the human cost, but behind the miracle were people. Millions worked 12-hour shifts, 6 or 7 days a week, often for wages that barely covered living expenses. Some lived in factory dorms, others in overcrowded urban apartments far from their families. Workplace safety was often an afterthought. Environmental regulations were weak or rivers turned black with industrial runoff. Skies in cities like Beijing turned grey with coal smoke. Yet for many Chinese workers, this was better than the poverty they had escaped. Manufacturing lifted over 800 million people out of poverty. It created a middle class. It changed the destiny of generations. 6. Moving up the value chain. By the 2010s, Made in China began to evolve. No longer content with making socks and screws, China moved into advanced manufacturing, electronics, machinery, high-speed trains, solar panels, electric vehicles. Tech giants like Huawei, Xiaomi and DJI became global players. E-commerce exploded with platforms like Alibaba and JD.com. The government launched Made in China 2025, a roadmap to dominate strategic sectors like robotics, biotech, and semiconductors. China wasn't just building for others, it was now building for itself. 7. The pushback begins, but with success came friction. Western nations grew uneasy, jobs vanished in their industrial heartlands, politicians blamed China, tariffs returned, trade wars erupted, accusations of intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers intensified. Multinational corporations began to hedge. China Plus One became a stratadev, diversify production to countries like Vietnam, India, or Mexico. But few could match China's infrastructure, speed, and scale. At the same time, China faced internal challenges, rising labor costs, an aging population, rural urban inequality, and a slowing growth rate. 8. A new era of self-reliance under Xi Jinping. China shifted gears. The focus turned inward on domestic consumption, technological independence, and dual circulation. Semiconductor production was nationalized. AI, space, and 5G became state priorities. The Belt and Road Initiative sought to export China's industrial model across Asia, Africa, and beyond. China began preparing for a future where it might no longer be the world's factory but its laboratory, its engineer, its innovator. Conclusion. Beyond the label. So what does Made in China mean today? It means a product built with the labor of millions and the ambition of a nation. It means a system that can scale ideas into reality at staggering speed. It means factories that run 24/7 and policies that shift the global economy. But it also raises questions about sustainability, about power, about what kind of world we want to build. China may not always be the cheapest place to make things, but it has already become the place where the modern industrial world was made possible. And in that, it changed not just itself but all of us.